The sun rose over the red earth of Timagane, casting long shadows across the village huts, each structure fashioned from clay and thatched roofs. Morning sounds filled the air as children ran through the narrow paths, roosters crowed, and women prepared to fetch water from the river. It was a morning like any other in the village, a quiet, routine life where everyone knew their place. But beneath the calm surface, Timagane was a village of whispers, and not all whispers were kind. The villagers of Timagane held beauty in high regard, yet their definition of beauty was both narrow and cruel. In their eyes, beauty was skin deep, and that depth was determined solely by skin tone. Light skin had become an ideal, a status symbol, and a ticket to affection, respect, and opportunity. For generations, tales had circulated about how the ancestors favored lighter-skinned women, granting them fertility, wealth, and even protection. This belief had woven itself into the fabric of the village, influencing customs, relationships, and even friendships. In the center of Timagane lived a girl named Amina. She was known for her kindness, her wisdom, and her strength, but these virtues were often overshadowed by one perceived flaw: her dark, deep brown skin. Amina had a presence that drew people to her. She was intelligent, with a quick wit and a gentle heart. But in Timagane, no amount of kindness could outweigh the unfortunate color of her skin. Amina grew up hearing the village elders speak in hushed tones about how lucky her lighter-skinned friends were. It was an unspoken rule that the lighter-skinned girls would marry first and marry well, often catching the attention of the wealthiest and most respected men. The elders would say things like, "A woman's skin is her greatest beauty," and Amina knew what they meant. To them, her dark skin meant she would always be overlooked, an invisible beauty in a world where only light was cherished. On the outskirts of the village, there lived a woman named Kessia, a widow with a story that many chose to ignore. Kessia's beauty had been her curse, for she had been born with a light skin that the village revered. When she was young, the village men sought her attention, showering her with gifts and making promises. Kessia, once the envy of the village, had eventually married a man of wealth and influence, but her life was not the fairy tale people had imagined. Her husband had been unfaithful, often cruel, and after he passed, Kessia was left alone, a cautionary tale of how beauty could also bring sorrow. Amina often visited Kessia, seeing the lonely woman as a mentor and friend. Unlike the others in the village, Kessia did not speak of beauty as something attached to skin color. She had seen the shadows that came with being the village's ideal, and she warned Amina, "Beauty fades, Amina. It's like water in your hands. No matter how tightly you hold, it will slip away." Amina took these words to heart, feeling a strange mixture of comfort and sadness. Though she yearned for acceptance, she knew that her worth was greater than her skin, something deeper, something no one could strip away. But one day, the arrival of a stranger disrupted the quiet life of Timagane. News spread quickly. A young, wealthy merchant from a distant village had come to Timagane in search of a wife. His name was Malik, a man known for his kindness and wisdom, and he was unlike the village men who judged so harshly based on appearance. Malik was looking for a woman of substance, someone who could walk beside him in both strength and spirit. When the village heard of Malik's quest, excitement rippled through the community. Every eligible woman began to prepare, adorning themselves with the finest beads, and wearing their most vibrant cloths. It was no secret that Malik would likely favor a light-skinned bride. After all, the village elders had already begun advising him on whom he should consider. Amina watched the frenzy around her with a quiet sense of resignation. She had no illusions about her chances. Though she admired Malik's reputation and dreamed of a love like the ones in the stories Kessia would tell, she knew the village would never consider her worthy of such a match. Her mother, sensing her daughter's disappointment, placed a comforting hand on her shoulder and said, "The heart is a strange thing, Amina. Sometimes, it sees what the eyes cannot." The next day, Malik held a gathering to meet the eligible women. The village square buzzed with excitement as each girl took her turn speaking to him. They offered their most practiced smiles and their finest words, each trying to impress the stranger who had captivated the village. When Amina's turn came, she was hesitant. She had no beads or vibrant cloth to adorn herself, no fair skin to display. But she walked forward, her head held high, her dark skin glowing under the sunlight. She met Malik's gaze with a mixture of strength and vulnerability, her heart pounding as she introduced herself. To her surprise, Malik didn't avert his eyes or show disappointment. Instead, he listened intently, nodding thoughtfully as she spoke. They discussed everything from the harvest to the village's customs, and Amina felt, for the first time in her life, truly seen. When their conversation ended, Malik smiled and thanked her, and Amina felt a spark of hope ignite within her. That evening, the village was abuzz with rumors. Many of the light-skinned girls were certain they had captured Malik's heart, convinced that his polite conversations were a sign of interest. But Amina, too, found herself holding on to a small piece of hope, a quiet dream that maybe, just maybe, Malik saw her for more than her skin. As the days passed, Malik continued to observe and interact with the village. He visited the river, helped with small tasks, and spoke to both elders and young men alike. He wasn't swayed by the opinions of others. Instead, he seemed determined to make his own judgments. This approach unsettled some of the villagers, particularly those who had already begun envisioning a future with him. Yet Malik remained resolute in his choice to take his time. One afternoon, Malik approached Amina at the edge of the river, where she was fetching water. He struck up a conversation, asking her about her life, her family, and her dreams. Amina felt an overwhelming sense of vulnerability, sharing pieces of herself that she had kept hidden. She spoke of her dreams to travel, too. When the time came for Malik to make his choice, the village gathered in anticipation. Mothers held their breath, and daughters stood with nervous smiles, each hoping to be chosen. Malik stood before them all, his gaze sweeping across the crowd. He took a deep breath and announced his decision, his voice strong and unwavering. "I have met many remarkable women in Timagane," he began, "but I seek a wife who can be a true partner, someone whose beauty goes beyond what is seen." The villagers exchanged glances, their excitement mixed with confusion. Malik turned to Amina and extended his hand, his gaze soft but resolute. "Amina, will you walk this path with me?" The village fell silent, disbelief hanging in the air. Amina's heart raced as she looked into Malik's eyes, seeing in him a mirror of the courage she had long kept hidden. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper as she accepted his hand. In that moment, Amina understood that her worth was not for the village to define. It was hers, a strength that no one could take away, a light that Malik had seen. In the days following Malik's choice, Timagane was no longer the peaceful village it once had been. Though most people greeted Amina with respect, there was a new energy in the air, an undercurrent of jealousy, whispered doubts, and simmering resentment. Some praised Malik's decision as a bold challenge to tradition, while others saw it as a threat to everything the village held sacred. The elders, in particular, were unsettled. They gathered in the village square, exchanging wary glances and muttered words. To them, beauty had always been a sacred gift bestowed by the ancestors, a mark of favor. Amina's dark skin had never fit within their narrow definitions, and her selection as Malik's bride had stirred old fears. A group of elder women sat under the shade of a baobab tree, their expressions a mix of disbelief and disapproval. "He has chosen her," whispered Nurai, a woman known for her strict adherence to tradition. "Does he not understand what this means? It is a challenge to the ways of our people." Her friend, Ikin, nodded. "In our stories, the ancestors blessed women of lighter skin to bring prosperity to the village. Dark skin like Amina's," she shook her head. "It has never been seen as a mark of favor. The spirits might not look kindly on this union." But despite the whispers and sidelong glances, Amina and Malik moved forward together, undeterred by the judgment around them. Malik treated Amina as his equal, often involving her in discussions about his work and seeking her opinion on matters of trade and village welfare. Together, they dreamed of ways to improve life for all villagers, envisioning Timagane as a place where every person could thrive, regardless of their appearance. Amina's mother, Dahlia, watched her daughter blossom in Malik's presence. She saw how Amina's laughter became freer, how her posture grew straighter, and how the quiet dignity she had always carried seemed to glow. Though Dahlia worried for her daughter, she also marveled at her courage. One night, after the village had quieted down, Dahlia took Amina's hand. "My child," she began, "you are walking a path few would dare to tread. There are shadows here, shadows that hold on to old beliefs, and they may not release them easily." Amina looked at her mother, sensing the depth of her concern. "Mama, Malik chose me for who I am. He saw me, not the color of my skin. For the first time, I feel like I have the chance to be true to myself, to let my spirit speak." Dahlia smiled, though her eyes remained somber. "I have always known you to be more than what others saw, Amina. But promise me you will remain careful. The elders hold tightly to their ways, and old ways do not die easily." Days turned to weeks, and Amina's bond with Malik only grew stronger. Together, They brought new ideas to Timagane, suggesting ways to improve trade and increase resources for everyone in the village. Malik encouraged Amina to speak at community gatherings, and her voice quickly became one of respect and influence. Yet, her growing role stirred discomfort among the elders, who felt their authority slipping from their grasp. One evening, an elder named Obina approached the village council with a plan to bring Amina's relationship with Malik into question. Obina had seen many changes in his lifetime, but he had also seen how beauty and status upheld the village's traditions and hierarchy. He feared that if the villagers strayed too far from the ways of their ancestors, the consequences would be severe. Obina stood before the council, his voice grave. "The ancestors blessed us with our customs for a reason," he began. "We have always known what beauty is, and we have taught our children to honor it. Yet now, we are asked to look beyond our beliefs. I fear what this means for our people." The council members listened, some nodding in agreement. Finally, one of the council members, an older woman named Mama Kia, raised her hand. "Obina," she said slowly, "you speak of the past, of the ways of our ancestors. But perhaps it is time to see if their blessings extend beyond the limits we have set. Beauty is not always seen with the eyes." The council murmured in surprise. Mama Kia had always been a voice of wisdom, a person who looked for balance between the old and the new. She continued, "Amina is different, yes. But she has brought strength and resilience to our village. Perhaps the ancestors have sent her to us for reasons we do not yet understand." But not everyone was swayed by Mama Kia's words. The more conservative members of the village began a quiet campaign to turn the people against Amina. They spread rumors, claiming that Amina's presence was an omen, a sign that the village was falling out of favor with the spirits. They even warned that her marriage to Malik could bring hardship, that crops might fail or illness might spread. The tension in Timagane grew, and Amina could feel the weight of it pressing down on her. Malik noticed her growing distress, and one night, as they walked along the riverbank, he placed a comforting arm around her shoulders. "I know this is difficult, Amina," he said softly. "But I am here with you, no matter what. You are my choice, my partner. Do not let their words dim the fire within you." Amina looked at Malik, drawing strength from his unwavering gaze. "I never imagined love would come with such a price," she whispered. "But if this is the path we must walk, then I will walk it with you." As they continued their walk, an unexpected figure appeared on the path before them. Kessia, the widow who had once been the village's beauty. Her face was etched with sadness and wisdom, a testament to her life's trials. She looked at Amina with compassion and understanding, as if she saw a reflection of her own struggles. Kessia stepped forward and took Amina's hands in hers. "Child, I know what it means to be seen but not truly known. You carry a light that this village cannot yet understand. But do not let them extinguish it. You and Malik are bound by something greater than skin. Trust in that bond, even when others cannot see it." With Kessia's words echoing in her heart, Amina felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew she could not change the minds of the entire village overnight, but perhaps she could show them that true beauty was more than what met the eye. The next morning, Amina decided to hold a gathering by the river. She invited the villagers to come and hear her speak, hoping that her words might reach those who had doubted her. When the villagers gathered, she stood before them, her voice steady and clear. "Timagane has always cherished beauty," she began, her gaze sweeping over the crowd. "But beauty is not something you can hold, nor is it a single color or shape. Beauty lives in our kindness, in our courage, in our resilience. I stand before you as a woman of this village, and I ask you to look beyond what you see, to see with your hearts." The villagers listened, some skeptical, others moved by her words. Mama Kia nodded approvingly, while others exchanged thoughtful glances. Amina's message planted seeds of change, even if not everyone was ready to accept it. In the following days, Amina and Malik continued their work, finding allies among the younger villagers who were open to new ideas. They created a space where everyone, regardless of skin tone, could find acceptance and opportunity. Little by little, the village began to soften, like the earth after a gentle rain, absorbing new ideas. And though the journey was not.
The season of harvest arrived, and the village of Timagane hummed with the energy of preparation. The air was thick with the scent of ripe maize and cassava, and villagers worked side by side to gather the crops that would sustain them through the months ahead. Harvest season was a time of celebration, but it was also a time when the people of Timagane honored the spirits of the land and water, beings believed to watch over the village and protect its prosperity. As was custom, the villagers prepared for the offering to the river, a ritual in which gifts were given to the spirit of the river to ensure peace and plenty. It was an event steeped in tradition, where the most beautiful woman in the village would carry the first basket of offerings to the water's edge. In the past, this honor had always fallen to a light-skinned woman, in accordance with the village's beliefs about beauty and favor. But this year, with Malik's choice and Amina's growing influence, the elders faced a dilemma. The council met under the same ancient baobab tree, its broad branches casting shadows across their weathered faces. Obina, ever the protector of tradition, was vocal about his concerns. The ancestors chose women of light skin for a reason, he argued. We have always given this honor to those blessed by their favor. This is no time to change what has worked for generations. But Mama Kia, her face lined with age and wisdom, spoke up. Perhaps the ancestors' favor is not so easily seen. Amina has brought good to this village, and the river has accepted her presence each time she's come to draw water. Why should the spirits reject her now? The council members murmured in debate, torn between Obina's staunch loyalty to tradition and Mama Kia's gentle wisdom. Finally, after much deliberation, it was decided Amina would be the one to carry the offering to the river. The decision sent ripples through the village. Some were hopeful, seeing it as a chance for unity, while others whispered darkly about angering the spirits. Amina felt the weight of both expectation and doubt pressing upon her, but Malik stood by her side, his presence a constant source of strength. On the morning of the offering, the village gathered at the river's edge, a quiet reverence in the air. Amina wore a simple cloth of deep indigo, her dark skin glowing under the morning sun, and in her hands she carried a basket filled with fruits, grains, and flowers. She walked forward slowly, her heart steady, yet aware of every watchful eye upon her. As she approached the water, Amina whispered a silent prayer, asking the spirits to accept her offering, to understand her heart's intent. She knelt at the river's edge, placing the basket gently on the water, and for a moment, there was only stillness. The crowd held its breath, each person waiting to see how the river would respond. Then, a soft ripple spread across the water's surface, followed by another, until the entire river seemed to come alive with movement. The villagers gasped, for it was as though the river itself had awakened, swirling around the basket in a gentle embrace. Flowers floated downstream, dancing upon the waves, and the water shimmered with a glow that seemed almost otherworldly. Amina felt a surge of peace wash over her, as though the river had accepted not only her offering but her very presence. She rose, turning to face the villagers, her gaze calm and steady. She saw the awe in their faces, the whispers turning from doubt to wonder. Even Obina, who had been so vocal in his resistance, stood silently, his expression unreadable. But the moment of acceptance was short-lived. As Amina returned to the village, an elder woman named Nafuna approached her, her face tight with apprehension. Nafuna had always been wary of change, and her words carried a mix of fear and bitterness. "You may have pleased the river, Amina," she said, "but the land holds its own spirits. The balance we honor is delicate, and not all spirits welcome change so easily." Amina met Nafuna's gaze, sensing the unease within her words. "I have no desire to bring harm to the village or disrespect the spirits. But I cannot be someone I am not." With a huff, Nafuna shook her head, retreating into the shadows. Yet her warning lingered, a reminder that even the river's acceptance did not guarantee peace. That night, as the villagers celebrated the successful offering, a heavy wind swept through Timagane, rustling the trees and sending a chill through the air. The older villagers exchanged worried glances, for the wind was an omen, a sign that the spirits of the land had awakened. Elders spoke of the Wendalu, ancient spirits believed to dwell beneath the ground, guardians of tradition who did not take kindly to disturbances. As the wind intensified, the village grew restless. Whispers of the Wendeloo began to circulate, filling the air with tension. Malik sensed the unease and took Amina's hand, guiding her to the edge of the village where they could speak privately. "Amina," he said softly, "we knew there would be challenges. But I see now that the strength of tradition runs deeper than I understood. Are you prepared for what may come?" Amina took a deep breath, her resolve firm. "I did not ask for this path, Malik. But if the spirits wish to test me, I will face them. I cannot let fear shape my life." As night fell, the wind settled, leaving the village in an eerie silence. But in the days that followed, strange events began to unfold. The crops, once full and ripe, showed signs of withering, and a sickness spread among the livestock. The villagers became frightened, their fears spilling over into accusations and superstition. Obinis seized the opportunity to reinforce his beliefs. "This is what comes of defying the ways of our ancestors," he declared to anyone who would listen. "The spirits are angry, and they will not rest until balance is restored." The villagers, many of whom were already wary of the changes Amina had brought, began to look at her with suspicion. Even those who had supported her grew quiet, their loyalty wavering under the weight of tradition and fear. Amina felt the distance growing between her and the village, a chasm widening with each passing day. Yet, in her darkest moment, Cassia appeared once more, her presence a balm to Amina's troubled heart. Cassia took Amina's hands, her voice soft yet filled with conviction. "Child, do not forget that even the strongest spirits can be moved by the truth of one's heart. The Wendeloo may be fierce, but they respect courage. You must face them. Show them that your love for this village runs as deep as any tradition." Inspired by Cassia's words, Amina decided to make a journey into the heart of the land, to the ancient caves where it was said the Wendeloo's presence was strongest. She would go alone, offering herself as a sign of her sincerity, her commitment to the village and its well-being. At dawn, Amina set out, the village watching in silence as she disappeared into the wilderness. Malik wanted to go with her, but he respected her need to face this test on her own. He stayed behind, his heart heavy with worry, but his faith in her unwavering. The journey to the caves was long and treacherous, and as Amina walked, she whispered prayers to the spirits, asking for guidance, for understanding. When she finally reached the mouth of the caves, she felt a deep, ancient energy emanating from within, a presence that seemed to pulse with life. Entering the cave, Amina knelt, speaking to the Wendeloo with reverence. "Great spirits of the land, I come to you not as a challenger, but as a daughter of Timagane. I seek only to honor this village, to bring light where there was once division. If I have offended, I ask for your forgiveness." The air grew thick, the shadows seeming to come alive around her, and Amina could feel the weight of the spirits' gaze upon her. She closed her eyes, surrendering herself to their judgment, her heart open and true. In that silence, she felt a warmth spread through her, a gentle reassurance, as if the Wendeloo had heard her plea and understood her intent. The shadows receded, leaving Amina with a sense of peace, a quiet blessing that filled her with strength. When she returned to Timagane, the villagers saw something in her eyes, a calmness, a strength that seemed to carry the very essence of the land itself. From that day, the crops began to revive, the livestock regained their health, and the village thrived once more. Though some still held on to their doubts, many came to understand that true strength came not from tradition alone but from courage, from the willingness to embrace both the old and the new. Amina's journey to the caves became a story in itself, a tale told to future generations as a reminder that even the fiercest spirits could be moved by the truth of the heart. In time, Amina and Malik's love became a legend in Timagane, a symbol of resilience, a reminder that true beauty shone brightest in the depths of one's spirit. And under the watchful eyes of both the river and the Wendeloo, the village found a new balance, rooted in the soil of tradition, yet open to the light of change. As the seasons changed and the rains returned, Timagane transformed, its fields lush with the vibrant green of fresh crops. The village, once divided, had begun to embrace the balance that Amina and Malik's love represented, a harmony between old beliefs and new understanding. However, not all hearts in the village were softened by the change. Obina, the elder who clung to tradition most fiercely, remained skeptical, his spirit restless. One evening, Obina gathered the council elders under the starlit sky. They sat around a small fire, its flames casting flickering shadows on their faces. "The village has grown complacent," he warned, his voice low and filled with conviction. "We are becoming blind to the true meaning of our ways. The ancestors gave us guidance for a reason, and we stray from their path at our own risk." Mama Kia, ever the voice of reason, looked steadily at him. "Obina," she replied, "Amina has proven her heart to the spirits, to the Wendalu and to us. She has shown us that beauty is a gift of the spirit, not the skin. Why do you still doubt?" But Obina shook his head. "A single journey to the caves does not absolve her. If she is indeed favored by the spirits, let her prove it, just as the ancestors did in their time." He looked around the circle of elders, his eyes flashing with resolve. "Let us test her once more." The council fell silent, each elder grappling with the weight of his words. Finally, Mama Kia spoke, her voice calm but firm. "If this is to be done, it must be done with respect. Amina has endured much already. We will not test her with malice, but with purpose." The council agreed, deciding on a challenge that was spoken of only in whispers, a test of wisdom, courage, and humility, the trial of the four winds. It was said to be a test given by the spirits to those whose hearts were strong enough to withstand the truth. No one in Timagane had attempted the trial in many generations, for it required journeying to 4 sacred places, each one connected to one of the 4 winds. Only by visiting all 4 and bringing back a token from each would Amina prove her worth beyond any doubt. The next morning, the council summoned Amina to the village square. A crowd gathered, uncertain of what was to come. Amina stood tall as the elders explained the trial, her eyes never wavering. Obina spoke, his tone respectful but firm. "If you wish to stand as a symbol for the future of Timagane, then the village asks that you face the trial of the 4 winds. Prove to us, to the spirits, and to the ancestors that you are worthy of guiding us into a new age." Amina nodded, her spirit unshaken. She knew the path would be difficult, but she had faced trials before, and this was a journey she was willing to take. Malik, who had been standing at the edge of the crowd, came forward, his eyes filled with pride and worry. "Amina," he said softly, "you do not have to do this to prove anything to me or to yourself. But if you choose this path, I will be waiting here, my faith in you unwavering." Amina placed a hand on Malik's, a silent promise passing between them. "I must do this, Malik. For myself, for our village. The spirits have called me to this path, and I will follow." With a simple cloth bag and a determined heart, Amina set out at dawn, her journey beginning with the northern wind. The villagers watched her leave, a mixture of admiration and trepidation in their eyes, for they knew the journey ahead was filled with unknowns and ancient challenges. The northern wind, the mountain of wisdom. The northern wind led Amina to the highlands, to the mountain of wisdom, where the air grew thin and cold, and the land was barren save for hardy shrubs and twisted trees. It was said that the mountain of wisdom held the whispers of the ancestors, and that those who climbed its peak would hear truths hidden within their own hearts. As she climbed, the wind howled, carrying voices both familiar and foreign. She heard fragments of the village's beliefs, doubts, and fears. She heard Obina's words of caution, Mama Kia's quiet wisdom, and the laughter of her friends. When she reached the summit, Amina knelt in silence, opening her heart to the wind. "I come not to claim wisdom, but to understand," she whispered. "Guide me to see beyond myself." The wind grew still, and in that quiet moment, she felt a deep knowing settle within her, a sense that wisdom was not something she needed to possess, but something she could invite by embracing both the shadows and light within her. She took a small stone from the mountain's peak, a token of the northern wind, and began her journey southward. Amina's journey through the four winds had left her both transformed and exhausted. As she made her way back to Timagane, each step felt like a gentle prayer, a promise to carry forward all she had learned on her path. The tokens she had gathered, the stone from the mountain, the feather from the forest, the driftwood from the desert, and a single, smooth pebble from the lake, were nestled safely in her cloth bag, each one carrying the weight of her trials and the wisdom she had gained. As she entered the outskirts of the village, she was greeted by a hush. The villagers had gathered, their eyes filled with curiosity, hope, and a hint of lingering doubt. Word of her return had spread quickly, and the elders, along with Obina and Mama Kia, waited at the village square, the sacred baobab tree standing like a silent witness. Amina's heart beat steady, grounded by the strength of her journey. She walked forward with purpose, her gaze sweeping over the familiar faces of her people. She could feel both their expectation and skepticism, a mixture of emotions that bound them together, as if the entire village were holding its breath. Obina stepped forward, his gaze sharp yet curious. "Amina, you have returned, bearing the tokens of each wind. But these objects alone do not prove your heart or your worth to guide our village. Tell us, what have you learned? What wisdom do you bring to Timagane?" Amina took a deep breath, steadying herself as she met the elder's gaze. She began by reaching into her bag and pulling out the stone from the mountain of wisdom, holding it up for the village to see. "From the northern wind, I learned that wisdom is not a possession, but a journey. It is found in listening to the whispers of the past and the voices of those around us. Wisdom does not belong to a single person but flows like the river, touching each one of us if we open our hearts to it." The villagers murmured, some nodding in agreement. Amina placed the stone on the ground in front of the council, then reached into her bag again, this time pulling out the feather from the forest of humility. "From the southern wind, I learned humility," she continued, her voice soft but firm. "In the forest, I realized that I cannot walk this path alone. True strength comes not from pride, but from accepting help when it is offered and knowing that we are all bound to one another." The feather floated gently to the ground, resting beside the stone, and the villagers listened intently, captivated by her words. Amina then took out the driftwood from the desert of resilience, the piece of wood that had survived under the relentless sun and wind. "From the western wind, I found resilience," she said, her voice growing stronger. "In the desert, I faced doubt, but I learned to walk forward even when hope felt distant. I learned that resilience does not mean never feeling fear. It means carrying on in spite of it. We are stronger than we know, and together, we can withstand any trial." Finally, she reached for the pebble she had taken from the lake of reflection, its surface smooth and clear. "From the eastern wind, I found reflection," she said, holding the pebble in her hand. "The lake showed me the truth of who I am, the light and the shadow within me. To lead, I must understand myself, for it is only by knowing our own hearts that we can understand each other." As she placed the pebble beside the other tokens, a silence settled over the crowd. The villagers looked at Amina not with doubt or suspicion, but with a newfound respect, as if they were seeing her for the first time. Mama Kia, who had watched Amina closely throughout her journey, stepped forward. Her gaze was warm and proud. "Amina, you have shown us that the four winds were not merely trials but guides. You have brought back wisdom, humility, resilience, and reflection, qualities that we should all strive to embrace." But Obina, though softened, still held a spark of caution in his gaze. He addressed the villagers, his tone measured. "Amina has proven herself, yes, but let us not forget the ways of our ancestors. We must honor tradition, even as we embrace change. It is not enough to simply abandon the old for the new." Amina nodded, understanding the elders' concerns. She spoke again, her voice calm yet resolute. "Obina, I do not ask the village to forget its past. Our traditions are our roots, and they give us strength. But I believe that the ancestors' true wish is for us to grow, to evolve as they once did. Just as the baobab tree grows strong but spreads new branches, so must we." Her words resonated deeply, a truth that spoke to both the young and old. The villagers looked to one another, and slowly, a ripple of acceptance spread through the crowd. They realized that honoring tradition did not mean refusing change, but rather finding a way to blend the wisdom of the past with the possibilities of the future. Then, in an unexpected gesture, Obinna approached Amina, his eyes reflecting a mixture of humility and respect. He extended his hand, a silent offering of peace and understanding. Amina took it, and the two stood together as a symbol of unity, a bridge between old and new. As the sun began to set, the village broke into celebration. Drums sounded, filling the air with rhythm and joy, and villagers danced, their laughter echoing under the stars. For the first time in generations, Timagane felt whole, its people united by a shared vision of balance and harmony. Later that night, Malik found Amina sitting beneath the baobab tree, her gaze fixed on the stars above. He sat beside her, his presence warm and comforting. "You have brought a new light to this village, Amina," he said softly. "The people see it, and so do I." Amina looked at him, her heart full. "It was not me alone, Malik. Timagane has always had this light within it. I only helped us remember it." In the years that followed, Timagane flourished. The village became a place of learning and growth, where wisdom was shared openly and the strength of each person was valued. The elders told stories of Amina's journey to the Four Winds, and the children grew up hearing of her courage and resilience, inspired by the path she had forged. The baobab tree, under which she had first stood to tell the tale of her journey, became known as the Tree of Balance, a place where villagers came to seek guidance, to share stories, and to remember the values that bound them together. Amina and Malik's love continued to be a source of strength for the village, a reminder that true beauty was not found in skin or appearance, but in the heart's ability to embrace both tradition and change. And as the seasons passed, the people of Timagane grew to understand that their village's strength lay not in holding on to the past or rushing toward the future, but in walking together, side by side, with open hearts and open minds. Thus, Timagane became known as the Village of the Four Winds, a place where the wisdom of the ancestors and the courage of new generations coexisted, each wind guiding them toward a future as boundless as the skies above. Years had passed, and Timagane thrived under the guiding principles that Amina had brought back from her journey through the Four Winds. The village was now known for its unity, wisdom, and the balance it had struck between tradition and change. Yet, as the years went by, whispers arose of an even older custom, one that had not been practiced in generations but was now finding its way back into the hearts of the villagers. The elders spoke of the gathering of ancestors, a sacred ritual where the village would come together to honor the spirits who had shaped their past. It was said that the gathering was a time of communion between the living and the dead, a night when the ancestors would walk among the villagers, offering guidance, blessing, and wisdom. The idea to revive the gathering grew within the village as if carried by the winds, touching each person in its quiet, persuasive way. Mama Kia, now even older but still sharp and wise, brought the council together one morning beneath the spreading arms of the baobab, which had come to be known as the Tree of Balance. "It is time," Mama Kia announced to the council, her voice calm but filled with certainty. "The ancestors have watched over us as we walked this path of change. Let us invite them back, to witness what we have become and to bless our future." Obinna, who had grown more understanding over the years but still held a deep respect for tradition, nodded solemnly. "Yes," he agreed. "The gathering of ancestors is a ritual worthy of our village. We have walked a long path since Amina's journey, and it is time to share our story with those who came before." When the villagers heard of the elders' decision, they prepared with devotion, each family bringing offerings to honor their ancestors, a woven mat, a gourd of fresh milk, fragrant bundles of herbs, and dried fruit. Amina and Malik, now respected leaders of the village, worked tirelessly alongside the others, ensuring every detail was perfect. They helped build a fire pit at the village center, around which the gathering would take place, a circle of life and light. On the night of the gathering, The villagers dressed in traditional clothing, patterns and colors that told stories of lineage and family. They arrived quietly, reverently, each person aware of the sacredness of the night. The air was thick with the scent of burning sage, marigolds, and the earthy aroma of the baobab leaves that were placed around the fire as an offering. As the fire flickered to life, casting a warm, amber glow across the faces of the villagers, Mama Kia stood before the crowd and raised her hands, her voice carrying across the stillness. Tonight, we open our hearts to the spirits, to those who came before us, who shaped this land with their hands and guarded it with their souls. Ancestors, we invite you to walk among us, to bless us and remind us of the wisdom we carry. The villagers fell silent, their eyes closed, listening to the crackle of the fire and the quiet murmur of the wind weaving through the trees. It was said that if one's heart was open and true, they might sense the presence of the ancestors as a whisper on the breeze, a shadow passing gently by, or a feeling of warmth deep within. Amina felt a stirring within her, a sense that the space around her was growing vibrant, alive with something unseen yet powerful. She thought of her own ancestors, the strong, resilient women and men who had taught her kindness, strength, and humility. She whispered her thanks, her spirit reaching out to theirs. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the gathering, stirring the flames of the fire and sending sparks into the night sky. The villagers gasped, feeling an unmistakable presence, something ancient and powerful, as if the very essence of the ancestors had entered the circle. One by one, the villagers began to share stories of their lineage, tales passed down from generations. An elder named Sarai told the story of her grandmother, a woman who had walked great distances to bring medicine to the sick during a drought. A young man named Kofi spoke of his great-grandfather, a skilled hunter who had respected every creature he hunted, offering thanks for each life taken. As the stories wove together, Amina rose to her feet, her voice steady, but filled with emotion. She shared her journey to the Four Winds, describing each trial and the lessons she had carried back to Timagane. She spoke not only of her own journey, but of the village's transformation, of how they had come to embrace a beauty that was both seen and unseen. And through all of this, Amina said, her gaze sweeping over the faces around her, we have learned that our ancestors' spirits are not bound by the customs we once held so tightly. They live within us, guiding us as we grow, as we make mistakes and find new ways to honor them. Tonight, we are here to offer our gratitude and to ask for their blessing. As she finished speaking, the flames flared once more, and the villagers felt a deep warmth settle over them, a presence that was at once familiar and profound. It was as though the ancestors had acknowledged the village's journey, embracing both the tradition they had honored and the growth they had courageously pursued. Obinna, moved by Amina's words, rose and placed his hand on her shoulder. Amina, he said softly, you have brought us to a place I did not believe we could reach. I once feared that change would tear us apart, but I see now that it has woven us closer together. I am grateful. As the fire burned low, the villagers began to sing a song that had been passed down through generations, a melody both haunting and beautiful, filled with the echoes of ancestors who had once sung the same tune under the same stars. The song rose into the night, a gift offered to the spirits, a bridge between the living and the dead. When the fire was nothing but embers, Mama Kia led a final prayer, her words a soft chant that invited the spirits to rest once more, knowing their presence was woven into the very soul of Timagane. The villagers left their offerings by the fire, symbols of their gratitude and love, before dispersing quietly into the night, each one touched by the gathering in a way that could not be fully explained. As Amina and Malik walked back to their hut, hand in hand, Amina felt a deep peace within her. She had once feared that she would always be an outsider, never truly seen or accepted by her people. But now she understood that the beauty of the village lay not in its customs or its past, but in the hearts of the people who carried those stories forward, honoring the old while embracing the new. The gathering of ancestors became an annual tradition in Timagane, a night when the village remembered those who had come before, celebrated the present, and dreamed of the future. And in each gathering, Amina's journey through the four winds was told, passed down from elder to child, a story of courage, resilience, and love that had shaped the village. The ancestors, it was said, walked with Timagane always, their blessings woven into the wind that whispered through the trees, the river that flowed by the village, and the warm earth beneath their feet. And Timagane, the village of the four winds, thrived in a balance that had once been only a dream, a place where all were seen, all were valued, and the spirit of the ancestors lived on, guiding each new step in the endless dance of life. As Timagane settled into the steady rhythm of the seasons, the village began to prepare for the annual planting festival, a time of celebration and hope. But as the festival approached, a drought settled over the land, and the rains that usually blessed the village were nowhere to be found. Days stretched into weeks, and the earth grew parched, the river receded, and crops withered under the relentless sun. The villagers, once so full of joy, became filled with worry. They looked to the skies, praying for clouds, but each morning dawned clear and dry. Concerned whispers spread through Timagane, and as the weeks went by without a drop of rain, even the elders grew uneasy. One afternoon, a group of villagers gathered around the baobab tree, seeking guidance. Mama Kia, her spirit as strong as ever despite her age, listened carefully to their worries. Finally, she raised her hands to calm the crowd. "Our ancestors are watching over us," she assured them, "but there are times when even they require us to seek help beyond what we know." The villagers looked at her with confusion. "What do you mean, Mama Kia?" asked a young woman named Nia, her voice trembling with worry. "Who else can we seek?" Mama Kia closed her eyes, recalling stories she had heard as a child. "There was once a rainmaker," she said, her voice filled with the weight of memory. "A woman who lived beyond the eastern hills, near the mountains, and it was said she had the power to call rain when the land grew dry. She was known to be wise, but few ever saw her, and those who did spoke of her as if she were a spirit herself." A murmur passed through the crowd. The rainmaker was a figure of legend, someone they had only heard of in stories passed down from long ago. No one knew if she still existed, or if she was simply a tale woven by the elders. But as the drought continued, desperation grew within the hearts of the villagers. Amina stepped forward, her heart moved by the sight of her people's fear. "If the rainmaker exists, I will find her," she declared, her voice resolute. "Our village depends on the rain, and I am willing to seek her out, no matter how far she may be." Malik, standing beside her, placed a hand on her shoulder. "I will go with you, Amina. We began this journey together, and we will see it through together." With the blessings of the village and guidance from the elders, Amina and Malik prepared for the journey to the eastern hills. They carried only what was essential, along with offerings to present to the rainmaker if they found her. Gifts of beads, fragrant herbs, and a small pouch of honey, symbols of their gratitude and respect. Their journey was long and filled with challenges. They traveled through forests, across rivers, and over rocky hillsides, all under the unforgiving sun. Yet, each night, as they rested, Amina and Malik spoke of the village, of their hopes for its future, and the lives of those who depended on their success. Finally, after many days, they reached the edge of the mountains where the rainmaker was said to reside. The landscape was wild and rugged, with towering cliffs and valleys carved by ancient streams. As they walked, a strange silence fell over the land, a quiet that felt heavy, as if the earth itself were holding its breath. Then, as they rounded a bend in the path, they saw her, a tall, regal woman standing alone at the edge of a cliff, her figure framed by the vast sky. Her hair flowed in the wind, and her skin seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. She wore a robe woven from grasses and bark, adorned with shells and stones, and in her hand, she held a staff that glinted with a mysterious light. Amina and Malik approached her with reverence, bowing their heads in respect. "Are you the rainmakers?" Amina asked softly, her voice filled with awe. The woman turned, her eyes deep and knowing. She looked at them for a long moment before nodding. "I am she whom you seek," she replied, her voice like the distant rumble of thunder. "Why have you come so far to find me?" Amina stepped forward, her heart open and true. "Our village is suffering," she said. "The rains have not come, and the earth is parched. We seek your help, Rainmaker, for we have heard that you hold the power to call the rains." The Rainmaker regarded them with a penetrating gaze, as if she could see into the very core of their souls. "The rain does not come easily," she said, her tone solemn. "It is not simply water that falls from the sky. It is a gift of life, drawn from the balance of earth and sky, from respect for the land and all that lives upon it." Malik bowed his head. "We understand, and we come with respect, seeking only to save our village and honor the spirits that have cared for us." The Rainmaker studied them in silence, then turned her gaze toward the mountains, as if listening to a voice only she could hear. Finally, she spoke. "I will call upon the rain, but I ask for something in return. Your village must commit to honoring the balance of life in a deeper way. You must promise to preserve the rivers and respect the forests, to take only what you need and to give back to the land." Amina nodded without hesitation. "We make this promise, Rainmaker. Our village has learned much about respect and unity. We will do all that you ask." The Rainmaker's expression softened. She lifted her staff, and as she began to speak, a low chant filled the air, a rhythm that resonated with the heartbeat of the earth itself. Her voice rose, carried by the wind, weaving through the trees and echoing against the mountains. She danced in slow, graceful movements, her steps mirroring the flow of water and the sway of branches in a storm. Then, as her chant reached a crescendo, dark clouds began to gather in the sky, rolling in from the horizon, thick and heavy with the promise of rain. The air crackled with energy, and the first drops began to fall, each one hitting the earth like a blessing. Amina and Malik watched in awe as the rain began to pour, cascading down the mountainside, filling the rivers, and soaking into the parched earth. They felt a profound gratitude, a sense that the Rainmaker had not only brought water to their village, but had also gifted them with a renewed understanding of their bond to the land. The Rainmaker lowered her staff, her face serene as she regarded them once more. "Return to your village," she instructed. "Remember this rain and the promise you have made. For as long as you honor that promise, the rains will come when you need them." Amina and Malik bowed deeply, thanking her with words and with the offerings they had brought. Then, with hearts full of gratitude, they began their journey back to Timagane, their spirits lifted by the steady beat of rain on the earth around them. When they arrived home, they were greeted by the joyful shouts of the villagers, who danced and sang in the rain, their hearts filled with relief and gratitude. The drought was over, and the village had been saved. Amina and Malik shared the story of their journey with the Rainmaker, recounting her words and the promise they had made on behalf of the village. The elders gathered the people beneath the baobab tree, where they spoke of the commitment to honor the Rainmaker's gift. Mama Kia, her voice filled with pride and reverence, reminded them of the responsibility they now bore to care for the land. Years passed, and Timagane grew into a flourishing village, a place where unity and respect for both tradition and nature had become the foundation of life. Under the guidance of Amina and Malik, the villagers lived in harmony with the earth and each other, honoring the ancestors and the Rainmaker's blessing with each season. The baobab tree in the heart of the village, known as the Tree of Balance, became a sacred site where people gathered to share stories, seek guidance, and celebrate the cycles of life. As Amina grew older, her heart swelled with pride for her village and its people, who had journeyed from division to harmony, from isolation to unity. Her children, and the children of her friends, grew up with a deep respect for the land and an understanding of the ancient customs that bound them to their ancestors. They learned the tales of the four winds, the gathering of ancestors, and the Rainmaker, carrying forward the lessons woven into their village's spirit. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast a golden light over Timagane, Amina gathered the villagers beneath the baobab for one final story, a story that would seal her legacy. Her hair, now streaked with gray, gleamed in the setting sun, and her voice carried the weight of wisdom and love. "Tonight," she began, "I wish to tell you the story of Timagane, a story of courage, unity, and the journey that led us here." The villagers leaned in close, young and old alike, their faces illuminated by the warm glow of lanterns. Amina's children sat by her side, eager to hear the tale they had grown up with, now told in her own voice. "A long time ago," she began, "Timagane was a village divided by beliefs that bound beauty and favor to appearances, to shadows that limited our understanding of each other's worth. I, too, was bound by these beliefs, shaped by the judgments of others, until the four winds called me on a journey." She spoke of her trials with the four winds, of the mountain of wisdom, the forest of humility, the desert of resilience, and the lake of reflection. She shared the struggles she faced, the humility she found, and the resilience that had guided her through the deserts of doubt. "The four winds did not test me alone," she continued, her gaze sweeping over the villagers. "They tested our village, our beliefs, and our ability to see beyond what we thought was unchanging. Together, we learned that strength lies in honoring both the traditions of our ancestors and the potential for growth within each of us." Amina then spoke of the gathering of ancestors, how the spirits had blessed the village's transformation, and finally of her journey with Malik to seek the Rainmaker. The villagers listened with reverence, the familiar stories taking on new layers of meaning as they came from Amina's heart. When she finished, a deep silence settled over the crowd, as if the ancestors themselves were listening, their presence felt in the cool evening breeze that swept through the village. Mama Kia, who had grown frail but still held the same gentle strength, stepped forward and took Amina's hands. "You have given us a gift greater than rain, Amina," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You have given us ourselves, our true selves. You reminded us that the ancestors live within each of us, guiding our hearts as we walk this path together." Obinna, too, stepped forward, his gaze soft with understanding. "I once feared change," he admitted, "but I have learned that true strength is found in facing change with an open heart. You have led us to a place where both old and new are cherished, and for that, we are forever grateful." One by one, the villagers expressed their gratitude, offering words of love and respect. Amina's heart overflowed, her spirit filled with the knowledge that her journey had not only shaped her own life, but had bound the village together in ways she had never imagined. As the villagers began to disperse, Amina's daughter, Nia, approached her, a question in her eyes. "Mother," she said, "when I am older, will I be able to make my own journey, to find my place within the winds?" Amina smiled, placing a gentle hand on Nia's shoulder. "The winds will call you, my child, when the time is right. And when they do, remember that they are not there to challenge you alone. They are there to show you the strength within yourself and to remind you of the strength we share as a village." That night, as Amina sat beneath the baobab tree, gazing up at the stars, she felt a deep peace within her heart. She knew that her journey was complete, that her spirit would forever be woven into the land, the river, and the very air of Timagane. She had become part of the village's legacy, a symbol of resilience and unity, of beauty that shone from within. In the years that followed, the people of Timagane continued to honor Amina's legacy, sharing her stories with each new generation. Her journey became a guiding light for the children, a reminder that true strength came from within and that beauty could be found in every soul, regardless of appearances. Each season, the villagers gathered beneath the baobab tree for the gathering of ancestors, calling upon Amina and all those who had come before to walk with them in spirit. And each year, as the planting season began, the Rainmaker's blessing poured down upon the village, nourishing the earth and filling the rivers, a reminder of the promise that Timagane had made to honor the balance of life. Thus, the village of Timagane thrived, its people bound by love, unity, and the courage to embrace both their roots and the winds of change. Amina's spirit became part of the four winds themselves, a force that guided Timagane forward, carrying the village's legacy on each breeze, each whisper, and each drop of rain that fell upon their sacred land. And so, the story of Timagane lived on, a tale of transformation and hope, passed down from heart to heart, across generations, forever woven into the rhythm of the winds and the heartbeat of the land.